Welcome to Talk Blaze. Today we dive into a story of magic, curses, and an unforgettable slumber. This is the legend of Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time, in a kingdom bathed in golden sunlight, a baby princess was born. Her name? Aurora. The kingdom rejoiced. The king and queen who had long wished for a child now held their greatest treasure in their arms. To share their joy, they hosted a grand celebration, inviting noblemen, townsfolk, and even the magical fairies who watched over the land. The castle was alive with laughter, its halls draped in silks of gold and rose, and tables overflowed with feasts fit for a legend. Musicians played, dancers twirled, and the air shimmered with enchantment as three kind-hearted fairies, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, stepped forward to bless the child. Flora waved her wand.
She shall have beauty beyond compare.
Fauna followed, her voice gentle.
She shall have a heart as kind as spring.
But just as Merryweather lifted her wand to bestow her gift, a cold wind rushed through the hall, the chandeliers flickered, the air grew thick and heavy, and from the shadows a figure emerged. Maleficent. The room froze. No one had invited Maleficent, the most feared fairy in the land. Her dark cloak flowed like liquid night, her golden eyes gleamed with quiet fury. She stepped forward, her voice smooth yet sharp as a dagger.
A royal celebration? How lovely. And yet, I see my invitation was forgotten.
The queen grasped Aurora tighter. The king stood in front of his wife and child. The fairies exchanged nervous glances. Then Maleficent smiled, a slow, dangerous smile.
No matter.
She raised her staff, its tip glowing an eerie green. The air crackled with dark magic.
Let me bestow a gift of my own.
The room held its breath.
On her 16th birthday, before the sun sets, she will prick her finger on a spinning wheel and fall into an endless sleep.
Gasps. A mother's cry. The king unsheathed his sword, but Maleficent only laughed, the sound twisting through the halls like smoke. With a final wave of her staff, she vanished into darkness. A curse had been cast. Panic swept through the castle. The queen wept, holding her child close. The king, enraged, ordered every spinning wheel in the kingdom to be burned, but it was not enough. Before despair could take hold, Merryweather stepped forward.
I cannot undo the curse, but I can soften it.
The room fell silent.
Instead of an endless sleep, she will slumber until true love's kiss awakens her.
The king and queen clung to this fragile hope, but deep in their hearts, fear remained. And so, they made a heart-wrenching decision. To save their daughter, they sent her far away, to live in hiding. Deep within an enchanted forest hidden from the world, a simple cottage stood. Inside, under the watchful eyes of Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, the baby princess, now called Briar Rose, grew. Years passed. Aurora flourished, unaware of the royal blood flowing through her veins. She ran barefoot through the woods, her laughter dancing on the wind. She sang with the birds, twirled with the leaves, and spoke to every creature as if they were lifelong friends. For 16 years, she lived a life free of worries, knowing nothing of the curse, nothing of Maleficent's watchful eyes, nothing of the fate waiting for her. But fate was already in motion. Aurora's 16th birthday dawned with golden sunlight spilling through the treetops. The air was soft and warm, filled with the sound of birds singing, a day like any other. Or so it seemed. The young princess, known to the world as Briar Rose, wandered through the enchanted forest, humming a tune, her golden hair glowing in the light. She moved with grace, her every step light as air. But today, something felt different. As she walked, she spoke to the trees, the rabbits, the squirrels, her lifelong forest companions.
I had the most wonderful dream.
she sighed.
A dream of a boy. His face was kind, his voice was warm. It felt like I had known him forever.
And then, a voice. Deep, gentle, familiar.
Perhaps it wasn't a dream at all.
Aurora spun around. Standing before her was a young man, tall and strong, with kind eyes and a smile that sent her heart racing. They stared at each other, the air between them alive with something neither could explain. They spoke, laughed, danced in the sunlight, and with each passing moment the world around them faded. There was only this feeling, this spark, this connection. As the day turned to dusk, Aurora sighed.
I must go.
When will I see you again?
The prince asked. She smiled, her heart tugging toward him.
Tonight, at my home. My family is expecting me.
Neither of them knew who the other truly was. Neither of them knew that destiny had already written their story, and neither of them knew this was the last time they would meet as strangers. That evening, Aurora returned to the cottage, her heart still soaring, but inside, her 3 beloved caretakers were waiting, faces pale, eyes heavy with sorrow. It was time for the truth.
My dear,
Flora whispered, taking Aurora's hands.
you are not just Briar Rose. You are Princess Aurora, the daughter of the king and queen. Tonight, we take you home.
Aurora stared, stunned. The walls around her seemed to close in. Her life, the simple, carefree life she had always known, was gone. Her mind raced back to the boy in the forest, the boy who had made her heart feel so light, so free. Would she ever see him again? She barely had time to process the answer, because that night, as she entered the castle, the curse was waiting. The halls of the castle whispered with long-forgotten memories. Servants bowed, noblemen murmured, and the king and queen, her real parents, wept with joy and sorrow. Aurora felt like a stranger in her own home, lost, alone. And then, a voice. Low, beckoning, calling from somewhere, hidden. Her feet moved on their own. Step by step, she wandered deeper into the castle, past candlelit corridors and forgotten chambers, until finally she found it. A room cloaked in shadows, a spinning wheel standing in the centre, its sharp needle glowing with an eerie green light. Her breath hitched, her mind screamed to stop, but her body ignored her. As if she were in a dream, her hands reached out. One touch, one prick, one moment. And she fell. Her body collapsed, her golden hair spilling over the stone floor like a river of sunlight. Her breath slowed, her heartbeat softened, her lashes fluttered closed. The castle fell silent. In the great hall, the fairies burst into tears. The king held his wife, his eyes filled with unspeakable pain. Aurora, their beloved daughter, was gone. But Maleficent, she was not done. Far away in the depths of her dark tower, she smiled.
No one will break this curse.
She whispered.
Not even him.
And with a flick of her hand, she summoned shadows. The prince would never reach her. Deep within Maleficent's dark tower, Prince Philip sat in chains, his sword gone, his horse taken, his path to Aurora blocked.
You thought you could have her?
Maleficent's voice slithered through the cold air.
Foolish boy. She is lost, sleeping forever. And you?
She smiled.
You'll never leave this place.
But far away, 3 tiny figures rushed through the shadows. Flora, Fauna, Merryweather. With a flick of their wands, the prince's chains melted away, his sword restored, his shield shimmering. Go, Philip, the fairies cried. Aurora waits for you. The prince ran, through the twisted forest, past walls of thorns that clawed at his skin, faster, harder, until Maleficent stood in his path. But she was no longer a woman, She was a monster, a fire-breathing dragon, wings stretching to the heavens, eyes burning with pure hatred. Flames erupted, steel clashed, the prince fought, dodged, struck. But Maleficent was powerful. Her tail whipped, her fangs snapped. And then, one chance, one opening. Philip raised his sword of truth, one throw, one hit, and the dragon fell. Maleficent's scream shattered the night. Darkness crumbled. The curse was breaking. Philip ran to Aurora's side. She lay so still, so quiet. He leaned in. Heart pounding. Breath shaking. One kiss. Her eyes fluttered open. The kingdom rejoiced. Aurora and Philip, hand in hand, stepped into their happily ever after. Because in the end, true love never sleeps. Because true stories, just like true love, never sleep. See you next time on Talk Blaze.